Chloe? Okay. Welcome to the program, DCTP.tv, live from the Campus Party 2012 in Berlin, the former airport Tempelhof. My next guest is Don Tapscott. Don, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming. So, you're an author, amongst other things. You wrote Wikinomics and Macrowikinomics. Wikinomics was published 2007, I think. It's 5 to 6 years ago. What happened since then? Did you see your idea come to life? Can you provide some examples?
Well, Wikinomics was about the corporation. And for sure, corporations have gone through these big changes that we talked about. Not completely, they're still arguably in the early days of reinventing their deep structure and architecture and the way that they orchestrate capability around the internet and around a new model. But the really big thing that changed was after the book came out, a year later, we had the subprime mortgage crisis and capitalism almost collapsed. And so that led us to write Macrowikinomics, because we concluded this is not just about the corporation, it's about the world, and it's about every institution of the industrial age.
And what is the idea of macroeconomics?
Well,
Wikinomics.
Macrowikinomics argues that the industrial age has finally come to an end. That we've had all these institutions, the old model of the corporation, the old media, government, science, our education system, our healthcare system, our old models of the city, our systems for solving global problems, which was my talk today. And all of these are based on an industrial model. It's about mass production, it's about scale, and it's about one to many, one size fits all, something in the center, pushes out standardized products, television ads, newspapers, lectures, standardized whatever to passive recipients. And the internet transforms all of that. It's a one-to-one and many-to-many medium, and it has this awesome neutrality. And that means that this is a new age now where people can participate in ways that were previously unthinkable. You can not only read the encyclopedia, you can write one. You can not only watch the television news, you can create a TV station. You can not only use software, Campus Party, you can build software.
Okay, let's assume those ideas would have been come to life before the mortgage crisis. What would have been different? How can these ideas prevent the next crisis?
Well, that's a very good question, because the whole economic collapse and the financial mess created a burning platform in all of these institutions. Burning platform means that you're somewhere where the costs of staying where you are become much greater than the cost of moving to something radically different. And everybody was pretty happy staying where they were. Newspapers and magazines, they thought, well, our old model is still a good one and it can last. When the economic crisis hit, they lost 20% of their revenue. They had a burning platform, and that caused them to start to think very deeply about what's the new model of the news and what's the new model where we inform ourselves as a society. There's something like the reinvention of government. That's an idea that's been around for 2 decades. I've been writing about this for 20 years. Al Gore's been on this for 20 years. Now we have a burning platform in Europe. We have to reinvent government. We can't go about doing government the old ways because we can't afford it, and it's not delivering good enough value. So we need to move to a new network model of public value.
How does it look like? If you apply those ideas of macrowikinomics or wikinomics to, let's say, government, how does it look like? What is different?
Well, there are 3 big changes in government. One is how you get capability to create public value. So the old model is, I'm a government, I collect tax revenues from you, I have people inside my boundaries, I create these services, I deliver them to you, I hope you enjoy my services. Well, we can't afford to do that now. So governments, rather than just simply being the creators of laws and services, can become a platform. They can release all of their data within confidentiality and privacy needs, and then people will self-organize using that data to create value. So,
for example, do you have any?
Well, I was talking to the CEO of Melbourne, and I said, give me an example of some data that you have. She says, bicycle accidents. We have data about bicycle accidents. I said, perfect, just release it. Within 24 hours, people will self-organize. They'll create a Google mashup and a map of Melbourne showing where it's dangerous to go on your bike. You'll be saving lives in a week, and it costs you nothing. You'll be delivering a government service, but you don't have to do it.
All right, this is the idea of open data and government as a platform.
Now that's one thing.
Yeah, right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
that's
but
what
we
I'm
can
asking.
also change our model of democracy. This sort of, okay, I'm a politician, listen to this 30-second negative clip, then go vote for me, and then I'm going to broadcast to you for 4 years, then we get to do it all over again. We can now move to a model where citizens are deeply engaged, and through challenges, digital brainstorms, electronic town halls, citizen reporting, deliberative polling, ideation. There are all kinds of new ways that citizens can be engaged in creating democracy and creating government. And the third thing is there's a big change in politics. You know, we've had these political parties. They were products of the industrial age too. Increasingly, they're becoming bypassed. I mean, in Canada, where I come from, there's something called Lead Now. It's a discussion of young people on the internet. They involve more people in those discussions about politics than all of the Canadian political parties combined. So political parties are being disintermediated. In the United States, they used to be institutions for discussion, for policy, for people to become involved. Now they're simply tools for raising money and fielding candidates. So our whole political body politic needs to change as well.
And you talked about those networks on different levels, government, finance, state, civil society, and now you're talking about parties being intermediated. Where does how does these networks being legitimized?
Yeah.
Who does hold them accountable?
Well, that's why I'm doing a big multi-million-dollar research project on this topic. We have these old institutions in the world for solving problems, like the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, the G8, the G20, and they're having difficulty solving problems. Meanwhile, we have these new multi-stakeholder networks that are engaging tens of millions of people.
Like, for example?
Well, there are 9 different types of these networks. There are knowledge networks that simply develop knowledge, like TED or Wikipedia.
Yeah.
There are policy networks that, like the Internet Governance Forum, that are developing actual policy. There are advocacy networks that advocate for social change.
Change.org, Avaz.
Yeah. Well, Coney would be a great example. Coney 2012 involved 100 million people in 1 week watching a video and raising money. But it's inspired, but is it legitimate? Where does the money go? Who's it accountable to? How do you achieve representation in a network
how do you
like
do
that?
it?
Yeah.
What is your idea? What is your thesis?
Well, that's what we're exploring. And we think that I've made some proposals today. You have a clear statement on what your mission is. You're fully transparent about your operations and all your connections and funding. Your leaders are compensated reasonably, and where they don't show a conflict of interest. You have clear measurement programs to show. So legitimacy is achieved through different mechanisms than through our existing institutions. And besides, are they legitimate anyway?
The institutions today?
Yeah. The government of Canada has a majority government, okay? Is it legitimate? It goes to climate change meetings, and Canada gets called the dirty old man of climate change. Is that government representing the views of most Canadians? You know, the government was elected with 40% of the popular vote. Only 60% voted. 24% of the electorate chose the government. Why are they any more legitimate or representative than one of these new multi-stakeholder networks that shows a whole new approach?
Are elections still part of the new model of legitimization?
Yes, I think we still need representative democracy. I don't think that you know, Ross Perot in the electronic town hall, you get to vote every night on the evening news. That's a bad idea too. I mean, democracy, part of democracy is representation. Democracy is a lot more than majority rule on a nightly basis. One of the things it's about is protecting the rights of minorities. But I'm looking at a model that embraces representative democracy but goes beyond that at the national level and really goes beyond that at the global level.
Don Tapscott, thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
All right. So, off to the